Hey folks, here in Massachusetts, it's early April, and although riding season's just about started, this is really the time of the year where I start planning a trip. Now, for me, when motorcycling went from good to really great and extraordinary was when I really started planning some longer trips, some overnights and even week-long trips. It just became so incredible for me. The bug bit me and I couldn't stop. So just about every year, my friends and I take off for a week on the bikes, just ourselves, and travel around. So I want to go through the methods that I use to plan out a trip. Methods I've used for quite a few years, and I'm interested in some of your feedback. Maybe there's some new things that people are using that I haven't thought about. But these are the methods I've used that really help make some pretty incredible trips over the years. The first thing that I'll use, and I use most often actually, it might be a surprise, are books. I've learned to really value these motorcycle tour books, in particular the ones that come out from White Horse Press. Probably my first trips were using these. I used this New England one right here and found Rangeley Lake, Maine, which has turned out to be one of my favorite destinations to go to. I've tested out routes in all of these books, pretty much, the areas that I've traveled to. And I just found that I really haven't missed with them. They lay out the turn-by-turn directions. They give you some ideas of the highlights and where to go. And I haven't really been disappointed at all from this. We used this book and this book a couple years ago to go to West Virginia, and the trip was amazing. So I like these books from White Horse Press. Now I know White Horse is going out of business, so I'm not sure what the future of these published books is going to be, if they're still going to run the publishing company. But snag these books if you can. They're really helpful. Some of the other books I'll use might be more destination related. Like I like these books about weird places in the United States to visit. I love my great motorcycle roads and going off through the woods, but there's times where I just want to go and visit a place too that's kind of unique and funky. So I use the books for that as well. Now, another thing that I use quite a bit are maps, old school paper maps. I just like the scale and detail that you can kind of lay things out and see. So if I'm going to go, say, West Virginia, I've got my maps here, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, just to kind of get a sense of the overall what's out there. And I'm searching for places that aren't as densely populated. One of the tricks that I use that I find is helpful is I like to find state roads, state highways, and the higher the number, the higher the digit, the number, the better. So, for example, if you're finding a state highway that's a single digit, like for us around here is Route 5 or Route 9, it's going to be a pretty busy road. However, if you go to a road with 3 digits, like Route 116, it's really fantastic. Ohio has Route 555, it's supposed to be amazing. So if you're looking to do some touring, look for those roads, those state highways that have triple digits in their name. I also love to have some atlases too. This I'll use for some trip planning because it'll tell me where the dirt roads are ahead of time. But I also will bring this with me when I'm on the road, just tuck it into a saddlebag. And if we're just out someplace unexpected, we want to travel, see what's around, this can be really helpful. So these are invaluable. Probably the best map I've got, in fact it's so torn apart right now, the cover's falling off of it, is a Rubel bicycle map for Western Massachusetts. This details really the best routes for bicycles, and oftentimes these are great roads for us too. It will show you dirt roads and just sparsely traveled paved roads. I found so many great things on this map. Unfortunately, it's out of print, but maybe you can find some other resources that are similar in your area. I'll put in a plug for this too. I used this on a cross-country trip in 2007. It's a Harley-Davidson Atlas. It's got some tour suggestions, but it's got maps of all 50 states and the Canadian provinces. So no matter where you are, you've got a fairly decent map with some highlighted routes for motorcycles that can be pretty helpful as well. Now, keeping up the theme of printed material, one of the other things I use quite a bit are magazines, older magazines. Roadrunner I found to be really the best. I've done several of their routes and again, just haven't been disappointed. This is an issue from, I believe, 2012, that I just saw a trip in here I really wanted to do in Pennsylvania, saved the issue. We ended up doing some of it, and we discovered the place called the Grand Canyon of Pennsylvania, which turned out to be one of our best trips ever, and we just didn't really expect it. But just holding on to these old magazines. Roadrunner has this nice thing where if you're a subscriber to theirs on their website, you have access to all their GPX files for all their trips. So if you're a subscriber or you have a friend who is, you can download literally hundreds of files and maps and trips. I use this for going to Pennsylvania, West Virginia. The routes were great, and it was free, and they're already been run and tested, so they're decent. You're not really fumbling around with anything. Roadrunner just came out with this tour magazine, but this is nationwide, but it's still got some decent stuff in here too, good trips. So check out your magazines. Rider Magazine has some good stuff as well. Now, online resources are things that I use too to do some trip planning, and honestly, I don't use it a whole lot. I found some stuff on ADV Rider for dual sport or unpaved roads. There's a number of websites like Motorcycle Roads and some others that list the best motorcycle routes in each state. I've just found it to be kind of subjective. I haven't really used the resource that much. Maybe some of you can comment about it, but I guess I'm just holding on to my my paper maps and books. I've just found some incredible places on them, and I guess I'm not too willing to give that stuff up. But online resources can work out okay too. Okay, so you've got your books and you got your magazines and you found some places you want to ride. Well, what do you do with it next? Well, for me, I use a program called Garmin Basecamp. It's been out the last few years, and it's really just literally computerized routing. Here's a route right here that I did, produced back in 2008, the Transmass Trail. And you can see the yellow line here is the route. And what I did was plotted different points in and then just ran it all together as a route. I'm not going to go through a tutorial of Basecamp because I found it to be a pretty complicated program. I get kind of frustrated dealing with it. There's great resources online to show you how to use it. But what you do is you can basically put your route onto Basecamp in the computer. I've got some other routes in here too. This is, for example, one that goes through Vermont called, I call it the Horseshoe Loop. It does a loop up from Greenfield, Mass. to Barre, Vermont, and then back. And there's a couple different sections in here. I've done video on this one. And what I'll do from here is I'll plot everything out in the computer in Basecamp, and then I will go and put this onto my GPS, and then I've got it on the bike. So again, once you get the ideas for where you want to go from your books and your magazines or your maps, you plot it out on this Garmin Basecamp, and then you've got yourself a route, save it, and then what you're going to do is upload it to a device like your GPS or your phone. Let's get into that now. Okay, so you got your books, maps, magazines, whatever you're going to use. You put everything into a file on your computer. I'm using Garmin Basecamp. Now you want to upload it to a GPS like this. This is a Garmin Zumo 550. It came out in 2007. I've been using it for 10 years. It's actually the third one I've had. I had two other ones that broke and Garmin had to replace them. But I found, even though it's an older unit, it works really well. Regardless of what Garmin model you get, because they have come out with a bunch of Zumos over the years, is you want to get something that does trip planning or routing in here. So you can set different points on a map and it'll take you turn by turn on that exact route. It's not going to send you out of the way or someplace you don't want to go. That's pretty particular to motorcycle GPSs, and that's probably one of the reasons they cost $700 in some cases. But to take a proper trip, I think it's something that you really need. I wouldn't go and try to get by with a $99 GPS. It's just not going to work because of the trip routing. So this is just kind of showing us where we're at, but to find a route, you're just going to say where to. You're going to go to routes, and these are all different routes that I have on file. All right, so let's take a look at one of these routes now. So let's go down the bottom one here, this Transmass Trail. We're going to go hit head and hit preview, and you're going to see there in purple the route itself. So it's just kind of giving me an idea where I'm going to go. And then when I select it, the GPS is going to take me turn by turn all the way to the finish line. Now I can end it at that time. I can pick a different way on the fly. I mean, I got a lot of options, but if you're doing some serious trip planning and want to get away for a couple days or so, you really need something like this. It's just going to make the trip a whole lot easier, more enjoyable. You're not going to be fumbling around, getting lost, wondering where you are, or just taking a chance and picking some bad roads. Okay, so I think I've given you kind of some basic ground rules to get going, get you started. I've got a couple, just really two rules that I kind of live by to make my trips more enjoyable. Even when I do all this work and this routing, the first thing is that the routes that I come up with for a trip are just a suggestion. Now, when we went down to West Virginia for a week, I probably had 5 or 6 different routes that I brought with me, maybe even more. And my friend Mike may have had more than that. We just kind of use that as a suggestion. If we want to get off the track and explore something else, we do it. It just kind of keeps us though, so we know that we have something that is at least halfway decent, that we're not going to worry about whether we're going to have a bad time or not. We've got that kind of in our back pocket. If we see something better down the road, we'll do it. For example, in 2007, my friend and I went and did a cross-country trip out to California. When we were in Oregon, a guy at a gas station stopped us and said, "Hey, you really ought to check out this place, Crater Lake." We'd never heard of it before, but we deviated from our plan and we went up to Crater Lake, and it's probably the best time we had in the whole week on the road. It was pretty amazing. So be flexible and just use your routing as a suggestion from when you're actually on the road. Now, the second suggestion I'll give in my rule that I have is just not to be too ambitious. Not to try to cram in a 500-mile day when you're on the road, unless you really just have to get somewhere. I really like to have my mileage around 150 or 200 miles a day. Now, I'll admit that sounds like not very much mileage and maybe too little, but if you really want time to explore, to stop, to look at things, to just do what you need to do, take some pictures, I found that that's perfect. The best days I've had on the road have been just 150, 200 miles. If you're on a dual sport bike and doing some dirt roads, even less than that, then you're not just too beat up at the end of the day. You're really going to enjoy the trip. So those are just my two rules. All right, that's pretty much my primer to get you guys started on trip routing and planning. If you have any suggestions, comments, questions, please put them below. I'm interested in what people are doing now. I haven't really changed my methods in the last 10 years. I've been doing basically the same thing. So there may be some new things out there. I understand there's probably some apps for a phone so you can use a smartphone and probably avoid having to get a $700 GPS. But anyway, put them below. As always, I appreciate your thumbs up. I appreciate your subscriptions and questions and comments. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the road. Bye.